Kaki, kua hau, pia te weri tanga o te poe, katū ake, te iwi a hou mai tawhiti. Nāna i whakaru, ai te rongo, ki Hawaii ki atakotora, e ko te taua. Au e nuku e pari mai ana. Ki te whakakōkohu ai te pounamu, aho mai rangi e. Katu ohu maira, ki raro i taku pā, tū wata, e tū ake nei. E kore koa, te tae a te hupeke ki runga i te whenua. Ora katahuri atu, katahuri mai, te wehi o te rā. I takaia i te anu, ka mau te mataku e. Ora katakina ki runga, katakina ki raro. Kia ue nuku, kia ue rangi, kia ho mai te tōhunui e. Ora ko te whakariki, ko te whakariki. Ora tuku a mai ki a piri, tuku a mai ki a tata. Kia eke mai ki runga i te pai, poto, ahau mai tawhiti. Ioha ka eke te wiwi, ka eke te wawa, ki runga i te parapara tūai e. Ia ku reiranga tira mā tēnā rā tātou katoa. Tautoko i ngā kōrero me ngā mihi, kua tuku aki a rātou mā ko whetūrangi tia. Rātou ka mahu e te tirohanga kanohi. Koutou rāhoki atu rā ki te whare o rehu āriki, ki te umao rangi whakaoti atu. Te hunga wairua ki te hunga wairua tātou te hunga ora, e noho ora nei, e noho ake nei tihei mauri ora ki a tātou. Ka tika rā me mihi atu ki te kaupapa o te rā, ki te hunga whakahaere, te hunga manaaki, Ngāti Whakau e te arawa whānui, tēnā koutou, o ti rā ki a tātou kua tai tawhiti mai, o tai tata mai tēnā tātou katoa. Ko ai au, ko Matangireia Yates Francis tōku ingoa, he uri noko nei, e tipu ake au ki konei ki taku pāhara keke ki Rotorua. O ki tātai whakapapa ka toro atu ki teitanga amaha ki rongo whakata me Ngāti Maniapoto anō hoki. Kia ora tātou. I'm privileged and honoured to be here to talk to you about the topic papakainga, but more so this topic about reimagining papakainga. In my kōrero today I have three kaupapa, the first being my perspective on papakainga, the second being on the current situation of papakainga, and then the third being my aspirations for papakainga, which will be explained through my master's thesis, TÜHONONGA, which has just been briefly described. Ai. I might. Just gone a bit too far. Kia ora, mate. Ke kone, here we are, araha mai. Tamai tia kona ki te kāinga, tūana ki te ao, tauana. Like I mentioned, I was born and bred here in Rotorua. My foundations were growing here. I went to Kohanga Reo, I went to Kura Kaupapa here. I guess who I am today and my aspirations in life were grounded and fostered here in Rotorua. And in particular, I want to highlight a special place in my heart and in my upbringing, which is one of my many papakainga, Whitaker Road, 21 Whitaker Road, which was built by my great kraua, Koro Wiremu Ngārua Yates, aka Wee or Bunny Yates. Built on whenua, that was passed down to the descendants of our kuia, Hāna Te Kāpai Waho. This papakainga, like many others, has seen death, has seen life, has seen people come, seen people go, happiness, sadness. As well as this pā has seen multiple generations come through it. Starting with my kraua, Korowi and Kuia Monehu, who then had 7 children, one of them being my Kuia Dixie. We then had my mother, Mercia Yates, who was raised by my Korowi. and then my mum having me, and then my generation. Like many of us would know with our own personal papakainga, memories, my earliest memories here at the pā were of whānau, having bathings in our baths, listening to stories about our koro, being a master of all trades, engineering the hot water to connect to our geothermal bore, hearing of stories, and also partaking in Christmases, birthdays, listening to kōrero of Kuia and Nan singing in the lounge, Kuia on the piano, Papa sitting on the couch singing along. Hearing other stories of our kuia and kraua as children, running up and down the road, in and out of houses with their cousins, because that was the way of life. Connection to each other was paramount. Community engagement was important. Knowing who each other was, not knowing anyone was sort of uncommon practice back then. Having connection to our pā, having obligations to our marae, was lived and breathed. And this is sort of what set my perspective on what I believe should be lived in when we see and when we talk about papakainga. But unfortunately, at te whānau, that is not always the case. Māui wi whenua, māui wi tangata. I believe currently the term papakainga has become commercialised. Commercialised to a point where when we hear about papakainga developments, I think of 21 Whitaker Road. But what we see and what we get are subdivided whenua, subdivided communities, spaces that aren't allowing for intergenerational living, and also aren't respecting our taiao. Māui wi whenua, māui wi tangata. In the land of six, so are we. We are in the Anthropocene, e hoama. The Anthropocene is a term defined by scientists to indicate the time and period we are currently living in as a human race. A period where our actions as people have and are having a huge impact on our climate and our taiao. And as Indigenous people, as Māori, we should be concerned because we know that we have whakapapa that connect us to our taiao, as if the taiao was us and we are the taiao. So I challenge us, e te whānau, to take a step back from the commercialisation, become more long-term, climate, community-focused. I challenge us to shift reposition our focus to, rather than a Western human-centric point of view, but to more so a long-term, environmentally focused housing solution. Whatu ngaro te tangata, toi tū te whenua. In the wake of the kōrero of the Anthropocene, we must remember when we perish, regardless, the whenua will remain and will rejuvenate whether we are here or not. This notion captures the essence of my thesis, master's thesis, TÜHONONGA, architecture co-occupying between Ranginui and Papatuanuku. In my master's years, two and a bit, I found myself face to face with the reality of the architectural industry, which is embedded in Western ideologies. This is where I began to reimagine what my expression of architecture should look like, based on longevity, community, taiao, with everything on the line by tikanga Māori. Toi tū te whenua, toi tū te tangata. TÜHONONGA is the term I have used to reference to the term of co-occupancy. Co-occupying and sharing space with our non-human kin, our environment. Co-occupancy sees the intrinsic relationship we have to our taiao, and is so important to the well-being of not only the taiao, but also ourselves. All of which, no surprises, are references from within our ao Māori. My thesis was situated in Wharenui Rise, which many of you might have seen or attended in the past week, adjacent to Waingahe Awa, on whenua tied to Ngāti Whakaue, Ngāti Te Roro Te Rangi, Te Uri o Uenuku Kōpako, and Ngāti Pikiao. My aspirations for this pā follows a 100-year plan, similar to hapu and iwi successions. So the first stage, I see reforestation and regeneration approach, planting whenua, planting marakai, thus providing opportunities to practice, taking steps to connect to whenua and also build a community. The second stage sees the foundation of the pā being established, first levels of occupying spaces inserted, looking to a modular build to build easily adaptable, and whānau then being introduced and co-occupying the pā alongside the ngahere. The third stage sees the extension of the pā with the additive of the second floor. More whānau introduced, more life. Some of us might be asking why I've gone vertical. The reason why I've gone vertical is to go to centralise the footprint of the building, and also to allow more opportunities for the repurpose of our whenua. Within the vertical structure, at each floor there is a green band dedicated to the practice such as ahu whenua or marakai, for whānau to still have those opportunities to interact with such activities while being vertical, as well as having a green roof, not only for gardening, but to be utilised as rainwater catchment and to act as a filtration system which then distributes the wai down through to the pā to be utilised, creating this life cycle, with our taiao being an important part to the function of the pā and the community. The last stage of the pā, hopefully at its 100th year, sees a fully functioning pā, self-sustaining pā, marakai in full prosper, that provides for not only the pā but also its wider community, the ngahere on full display, traditional practices being able to be lived and breathed through our environment, the pā housing a healthier environment, breeding a healthy community and a thriving culture. Don't get me wrong, te whānau koe maharahara, I acknowledge the pressing need for housing, but in order for sustainable solutions and the survival of our taiao, we must harness our traditional perspectives, and return the mana to our whenua. These are my aspirations realised. This is what I seek to achieve for my tamariki mokopuna, to return to the whenua and to have them prosper and thrive as one. So to finish, I'll leave you with the final excerpt of my Masters. TÜHONONGA presents a new way of perceiving co-occupancy and what co-occupying space with the wider ecology through the practice of architecture grounded in tikanga Māori at a physical, spatial and spiritual level may look like. The methodology presented provides a process for architects in Aotearoa to critically assess behaviour towards not only our built and unbuilt environments, but also the communities that occupy them, human and non-human. Within the confines of Te Ao Māori, there is an abundance of customs that can set the precedents for co-occupancy and an example of how one might reconnect with nature and the natural ecosystem. TÜHONONGA brings forth the potential for community living through spatial composition that is contemporary, yet grounded in the pursuit for co-occupancy with nature, traditional Māori narratives, and a thriving culture. Toi tū te whenua, toi tū te tangata, tēnā koutou, tēnā rā tātou katoa.